Listen for the sound until you no longer can hear the sound. Can you still hear it? You're so focused on one singular thing, and in doing that act, then you're letting go of all the other things that are going on in your head. Hello and welcome. Woo-woo statements. How do we access this with our very logical, non-woo-woo receptive brain? So mindfulness is something that is starting to gain popularity. I thought it might be kind of nice to have a little conversation about just some of these statements. The sentiment of the whatever the woo-woo is sometimes doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't seem logical. I can't wrap my head around it necessarily. And what ends up happening is I overthink. I think too much about what is being said, what is being meant. We're supposed to take in these statements and they're supposed to kind of access a certain part of ourselves, and we're really not getting there. I'm not getting there because of my brain just creating a blockade. And so like here's the entrance to my brain right here, and here's the statements, the sentiments, and they're coming along and pew, they get ricocheted right off my brain, and I want to kind of loosen that up a little bit and maybe even create some holes so that I know every once in a while they're gonna pew and ricochet off, but maybe more often they can get through into my brain and help me with this mysterious woo-woo side of what's out there in the world. So maybe if we kind of analyze the statement, it'll become less of a mystery. And then when we get to more statements in the future, then maybe we'll internalize them and accept them a little more readily versus like, what does that mean? I don't get it. All right, so the statement I have for you is something that I heard at a training. Approach what you feel physically with acceptance and curiosity. So what I thought we might do is it's kind of like what I would do for the students when we get to a math word problem. I would say, go ahead and read the math word problem and identify any words, any key words that just don't make sense to you, and then talk to your partner and see if you can work out what some of those meanings are. And so that's kind of what we're going to do right now. Let's identify some of these key words that maybe don't quite make sense and like figure out just an entry point. The first word that I would say that I would need to kind of think through is the word approach. And approach doesn't necessarily jive, I guess, when I'm thinking about something that I'm doing in my brain. It's either it happens or it doesn't. I'm not necessarily like sitting there and waiting for something to happen. If something doesn't happen in a certain amount of time, then it's like, okay, well, I guess it's not meant to be. Let's, move on to something else. Maybe it'll come to me later. But with the idea of approach, so if I think about what approach means in maybe a physical sense, so as I approach the grocery store, I am walking and it's going to take me some time to get to the grocery store. I have a starting point and then I have my ending point, but my approach is everything in between. If I take that definition and apply it to this idea of approaching how I feel, then maybe what I need to take from it is that I may not know right away. I may have to sit and kind of let it appear or manifest or, show itself, I guess. And it's okay if it doesn't happen right away because maybe it needs a little time to get to the surface. The next word is physically. I am assuming that when we're talking about in this statement here, physically is going to mean literally what I'm feeling physically, pains, or maybe some tinglings, and maybe some numbness, maybe even how I'm feeling internally, like hungry, or maybe physically, I don't know. So physically just seems very literal, and maybe that's what it is literally talking about. If I think about the purpose of mindfulness, it is supposed to be you're in the moment. And so in the moment may not necessarily be enough time to think about and think through, oh, I'm feeling hungry because I skipped breakfast because I did this, and I'm rushed, and then I'm feeling anxiety, and whatever that spirals down to. Maybe it is just recognizing that physically at this moment, this is where you're at, and the benefit of that. So thinking about a benefit, so I keep shrugging my shoulders here because this is a lot of like unknown territory to me, and I'm feeling a lot of I don't know what I'm talking about here, and I'm just trying to work through this with you guys. So I'm not sure about the physically one. Is this supposed to be deeper? Okay, so the next word I would say is acceptance. And I understand acceptance. It is what it is. No judgment. And it's very hard sometimes when it comes to applying that word to myself. There is this sense of judgment that happens in my brain. I think part of it is just trying to get back into that positive light. And so when I notice something that is not in the positive, then it's like, what is this negative thing that's happening? What do I need to do to fix this thing? And check, all these questions to kind of figure it out. So at this moment when I'm supposed to sit here and accept this, whatever's happening to me physically, number one, I have to be able to identify what is happening to me physically. And then number two, I have to say no judgment. When, the first thing to do would be, but, why is it doing that? What can we do to make it better? And blah, 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 blah. In a recent training, we had somebody go through a lot of mindfulness activities with us. And one of the things that he said that I found very useful, very helpful when it comes to thinking about these things, is that negativity is not bad. That's my problem. I feel like this needs to be a whole new video, but just kind of sowing some seeds there. Negativity does not equate to bad. And so once I wrap my head around that, that's going to help me with the acceptance part. And so there we go. There's acceptance and not judgmental, and just it is what it is. Bam. And the last word is curiosity. Curiosity is not a word I would use about myself. I'm not really internally curious about myself. I am curious about the outside world. I'm curious about others. That's where my questions tend to go. It's, oh, I wonder why did they do that? Oh, I wonder why did they say that? Oh, I wonder why that is happening. This why question happens a lot, just like it does for everybody else, but it's never like, oh, I wonder why I think that way. That never comes to my mind. It's not, oh, I wonder why I feel this way. That definitely doesn't come to mind because I'm not thinking about even how I'm feeling. So none of these wondering curiosity things is pointed at me from me. And so when I hear a statement that is being curious about something about myself, then there it is. It's hitting that barrier because it's like curious about me. Boom! I don't think so. What do I need to be curious about me for? But that's what mindfulness is about. It's knowing and accepting and figuring out where you're at the moment. And so if you're approaching something with curiosity, that makes sense when I'm approaching a situation. But now I got to rethink, how does that look when I'm approaching myself with curiosity? I don't know. I don't know the answer. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know what it feels like because I haven't gotten there yet. But I know that if I start thinking about these statements as I'm figuring them out and accepting them and changing my perspective of them, then later on when I hear them again, I'm more willing to accept it. And that's the goal. The goal is to be this person that not only understands the logic and the rationale and the reasonings of others and the world, but also of myself, and also understand and be curious about myself. It's not, well, I feel like I say this every single time, but it's not going to be easy, and it's going to take time. It's time that we normally spend on other things. And so what are some statements that you've heard in the past or recent past about these kind of woo-woo sentiments? And let's try to figure them out. Let's present them and not make them so mysterious, so that later on when we see them again, when we hear them, that we'll accept them. And so that is all that we have for today. I hope that you join me next time when we look at something different. And with that, I will say goodbye. We are going to talk about a woo 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 woo.